This video is going to save you some money. If you have a 2012 to 2016 Legacy Chevrolet Impala, the older style, from 2012 to 2016, they had a different motor and trans with a different CV axle and intermediate shaft. If you have one of these 2012 or newer Legacy Impalas and you have a wheel bearing noise that you can't seem to fix, I'm going to show you the bearing that is the problem. It's a bearing on the intermediate shaft on this right hand side CV axle. On this car, I have replaced all 4 hub bearings, thinking it was a hub bearing problem because it sounds just like a hub bearing wearing out, and still had the noise. Now I'll show you, if you're going to tear it, or if you can replace hub bearings, you can do this job right here. Or if you can replace the CV axle, I'll show you what I'm talking about. Went to the wrecking yard and I got the whole CV axle because I could get it cheap there. Now every car I took it off of, that bearing is dry. Listen to that. That is your noise right there. The only one that I found had a good bearing was from a car from Michigan, and it was really rusty. But the bearing is really nice. And both CV axles on these Impalas are the same, right or left. It is that intermediate shaft and the bearing that's in there that is the difference. This intermediate shaft is about $200 everywhere if you can find it. The only thing you really need is that bearing. Now the intermediate shaft separates from the CV axle, you know, right inside of here. This little metal flange you can knock off, or actually you don't even have to knock it off, but it separates right in there. And that's what I've done here. I knocked this loose. To get the bearing off of the intermediate shaft, you got to take these C-clips off. But anyway, that intermediate shaft comes off like that. This bearing, with a hammer and chisel, you can take and knock that bearing off. It's not pressed on. And it appears to be just a common bearing in there. That is all you need. You don't need to buy that $200 part. You can buy just that bearing. As soon as Christmas is over, I'm going to look at a bearing shop and see if I can buy just the bearing, because that, with that hammer and chisel, was about to knock out. You've got to take these 2 C-clips off. There's 2 of them. One that goes here and one that on that, and they hug the edges of that bearing. But once you get those C-clips off, you can knock that bearing off of there with a hammer and chisel. Now then, I obviously can't use this shaft because it's so rotten, but I got this real clean shaft with the dry bearing. So since I couldn't get that shaft anywhere without ordering it, and I would like to fix this car, I was just stuck going to the wrecking yard, and I didn't want to throw money at this thing at $250, and that may not fix the problem. If I upload this video, this fixes the problem. Now, like I said, I replaced all 4 of my hub bearings. I still had the bearing noise. The next thing was to replace the CV joints, everybody said. Well, I don't think it's a problem with the CV joints because they're not clicking or anything like that. It wouldn't be until I replaced this bearing that I'm going to get rid of that noise. And nowhere have I found anybody that suggests that. But when I went to the wrecking yard and I started pulling axles out of different Impalas, they were all of them dry. It was this one ugly Michigan car that had a good bearing for whatever reason, I don't know. And that's why I'm out here trying to put this together instead of ordering one. Not to mention the fact I don't like spending $250 having something shipped to me whenever I think really just a standard bearing would work. If I didn't have this bearing as a good one, that would be my next thing, would be to go to a bearing store and see if I could find that. But it's that intermediate shaft bearing that is your problem. I don't think it's a problem with the CV axles at all. It obviously wasn't a problem with my hub bearings. It sounded just like a hub bearing, but replaced all 4 of them. I still had the problem. If I upload this video, like I said, this, just replacing that bearing fixed this car. And it's something that has really bothered me, and apparently everywhere you look, they don't think of that as a problem on these cars, but yet there's still a bearing noise. And I can tell you all the cars in the wrecking yard that I've gone to have that bearing noise. When you go to AutoZone, they don't stock it. O'Reilly doesn't stock it. Most of your Chevrolet houses don't even stock it. It is a special order part, and it looks like the only thing you need is just that bearing, because the rest of the intermediate shaft, like I said, is just a chunk of metal. And provided that your car is not from Michigan, you don't need to replace all that metal. Just get a new bearing and put in there. It goes on and off with a hammer and chisel. Anyway, it's dark. Sorry about it being a crude video. I hope this solves a mystery. These Impalas are wonderful cars. They get really, the 2012 and newer car Impala is legacy car, gets really good gas mileage, and they go nearly 300,000 miles a lot of times. And I love the car, but I just hate that noise that couldn't seem to solve the problem. And if this video is uploaded to YouTube, this was the problem all along. And you can see where that would certainly make noise. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it.